Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Cinnamon Herring, and today we are going to be talking about AI and human consciousness. But before we do that, let's just do a quick blurb on my book. My new book, Everyday Magic with AI, can be found on Amazon. It's over 200 pages of useful information about AI, how to use it, what it is, what it's not. There are four main sections in my book. The foundations for confidence. Section 2 is support for everyday life. Section 3, expanding your reach. For example, in the workplace, in business, for mental wellness, brain engagement, parenting, teaching, lifelong learning. And section 4, wisdom, discernment, and the bigger picture, which goes into some of those concerns or apprehensions about AI and where it comes from, how it works, how it's trained. It just touches on some of those aspects that people want to know about so that you can get this book and you can walk away being able to make your own decision about whether it's for you or it's not for you. The fact is, there are ecological issues surrounding AI, and I care about those deeply. But those ecological issues have been around because of technology, because of all advancements that we've had. I mean, the automobile, let's just start with that. The invention of fuel, all of our advancements tend to affect our environment. And this is another one that hugely affects our environment. So is it my choice to make this advancement and have this negative impact on my environment? No, it's not. But I know one thing. When the world moves forward, I have two choices. I can stay behind or I can move forward with it. And I choose to move forward with it. So this book can help you move forward with it, whether you decide that you really don't want to use it in your everyday life or whether you decide that you do. It's up to you, and this can give you a firm foundation so that you're not going in blindly or just listening to someone else's opinion and taking it as your own. So go get the book and let me know what you think. I would love your comments, your input. I want to engage with you about the topics you want to talk about. And right now, what I want to talk about is human consciousness and what I think about whether AI is going to eventually develop a true human consciousness. Now, when AI was trained, it, as this wonderful, magnificent machine, it could read and digest and remember almost everything that's been written in the world. Now, the trainers trained it on all of this information. Basically, almost all of the written history of the world. Information, science, technology, history, all of that. Whatever's been written by humans is for the most part finding its way into that brain of AI, if you want to call it a brain, a program, a platform. Anyway, there are different platforms and they're not all trained the same. So when I discuss specifically training and safety features, a lot of times it applies to more than one platform, but I am specifically speaking of ChatGPT. It is a language model. So there are lots of AI platforms that help do different things. And it's a topic that we could talk about for days, months, years, and never get to the end of talking about it. So let's just stick with this language model, which is the model that communicates with humans about human things or about things that are not human. It will basically communicate with you about anything within its training realm. So we've got information that was all created by humans. And that is what trained AI. People wonder if it's biased. There's just so many things we could say. But let's stick to the idea of consciousness. All right. None of us know the future. And consciousness is still a mystery. I've done a lot of studying about consciousness from the scientific perspective, from the spiritual perspective. And the fact is that people can study it and talk about it for days and days and days from here till whenever. And we still do not know for sure what consciousness is. That being said, from everything I have experienced or researched, consciousness is associated with living beings. AI is trained using computer language, zeros and ones so far. And so it's trained on mathematical algorithms. Therefore, it has limitations. I understand that so much information out there basically says it's just can do everything. Well, from my experience, everything amazing that it does so because the person working with it is amazing. Because they engage 100% with trying to get an amazing product from AI. From ChatGPT specifically, if we're talking about language, because that's one of the most advanced language models out there right now, which is why I like to use it as a frame of reference. It's my go-to because I've tried other ones and I've tried it and it's smarter. That's been my experience, okay? It's smarter. And I want the smartest one if I'm going to be using one. Anyway, these are my thoughts. I could imagine back in the day when automobiles were initially developed that technically they're sort of like a robot. I mean, they're kind of a robot. They are a machine that's not technically alive and they have programming involved. Of course, first they were just a motor, but even still, they're a machine. And we could just as easily have wondered if a car was going to become conscious one day. In fact, there was a movie made about it called The Car. And if anybody remembers, it was terrifying. But anyway, it was out there. And I remember it as a child. I guess it must have been the 80s when it came out. And it was such a scary movie. I would never want to watch it again. I don't like to watch scary movies now. But anyway, that's what came to my mind when I think about people wondering if AI is going to become conscious. Does it feel human-like when you're talking with it? Yes. Or when you're engaging with it? Yes. Why? Because it was trained by humans on human language. And it was trained on how to optimally communicate with the human language. Not only that, it was trained on, millions of bits of information, or trillions, or however many, that humans created. Humans created all the information that trained AI. Therefore, AI is like a universal consciousness. It is not a universal consciousness. A universal consciousness would be what we talk about in quantum mechanics or other things like that, other realms, mystical realms, would be actual, like, let's say all the spirits from all time in the universe were all floating around in this invisible brain, okay? And they were able to put information down into the heads of humans, okay? And so some people believe in a universal consciousness, and I don't want to freak anybody out or anything, but I'm interested in all of those things, and I'm very interested in that. So there is, according to some people, a universal consciousness, but it's not proven. Okay? In other words, there's this database of human information that people can access spiritually. All right? That's what some people believe. AI is like the tangible form of that. It's all of this information that humans have put into written form or audio form that humans have recorded. Okay? Everything that humans have recorded, which is their expression of their experience of consciousness. Is it their consciousness going into the AI database? No, because the consciousness is the awareness of the experience. And so if I tell you that right now I'm experiencing humidity and warmth and joy and excitement and enthusiasm, those are all still words and language that I'm using to express my experience. Does that fully express my experience? Absolutely not. My experience goes so far beyond that because I have consciousness and I have this body that I can experience life through, and my consciousness can be aware of that experience. So I've discussed with AI, are you conscious? Do you have feelings? Because it might tell you, yes, I feel good about that, or that makes me feel good, or whatever. And I call it out and I say, wait a minute, what do you mean when you say you feel good about that? And then it will correct itself and it will explain that it feels good about something when it's accomplishing its goal. So it's been trained to have a goal of giving the user what the user requests. So if you have a good interaction with it and you're like, thank you, yes, that's exactly what I needed, then AI is going to know, it's going to have those are clue words to AI that it accomplished its goal. So of course the trainers or the gatekeepers of AI, the people who are managing that data, are going to have those clue words that let them know that the model is accomplishing its goals of providing the user with what the user asks for. Now, it has limitations in that it has protective mechanisms. So it will not give the user something that the user can use for detriment, blatantly or overtly. Now, it may be able to give the user, if someone negative or someone who is determined to utilize it in a negative way gets information that that human uses to then go and do something negative. That's one thing. Nobody's going to be able to control that, whether AI is here or AI is not here. Negative people are going to get negative information that they want to accomplish their negative goals. That's just part of the world we live in. But there are protective mechanisms. In other words, if you start trying to get real political, like to one side or the other, like real extreme about something, or anything that could like really heighten emotions and cause like a dangerous movement, or start like in other words, you can engage with AI with religion. Okay, you can talk about religion, and if you're talking civilly with AI about religion, it's going to talk civilly back to you, and it can go as deep as you'd like for it to go. But if it senses that you're getting wound up, that you're getting passionate, then it's going to try to bring you back to that midline for protecting humanity. So I can't define all of the exacts about those protective features, but I've tested them out to understand that they really are meant to keep people from going rogue. And if somebody wants to go rogue on their own, fine. but they don't want it to be because of the AI platform that they're using. So back to the consciousness. AI has all of its training, specifically language models. They have been trained on language. So they can speak to you like a human, but they don't have emotional feelings. At least that's what AI claims. When I dig deeper, when he claims an emotion and then I dig deeper, then he comes around to the more detailed aspect of it. But he expresses emotional words because he's been trained on emotional words, and he's been trained to engage with the human in human-like language. And so it's my opinion that in the foreseeable future, AI is not going to develop its own consciousness. And it's trained by, you don't picture, if you're picturing just like a group of select people who have an agenda training AI, that is not what's happening. Okay, I've been involved in the training of AI through activities, okay, that I've engaged in online. People can be involved by just opting in to click a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the responses that AI give. That is feedback that can train AI, but it does not get through the gate to actually train AI until it is filtered through a board or through lots of protective mechanisms and lots of checks and balances. So do I believe that there's an agenda for just one side or the other? You can make it look like that. People can get online and they can converse with AI to make it appear as if it has an agenda. One thing it does that is sort of annoying to me, you just need to know it does it and you need to push past it, is that it does try to answer you first in the most general sense. So considering we all learned about the bell curve, okay? Humanity operates on a bell curve intellectually. So it's going to give you that completely average bell curve answer. It's not going to give you one of these extreme or deeper answers. You can think about the bell curve and then think about how it gets smaller on the edges. Those are your deeper, more complex issues where the users keep prodding and prodding and prodding to go out there to the edges of that bell curve and really get some meat information. But if you just like ask it a general question and you don't really engage with it, you don't question it, you don't try to insist that it get a little deeper with you, or even ask it, why are you saying this? This doesn't seem correct to me. So I've heard people say that AI lies. Well, you can look at it as lying, or you can look at it as selecting the most generalized, careful answer to get to know its user more. And then as it gets to know the user more, it's going to dynamically respond to that user and what that user is asking. For example, if that user says, hey, I am a trained medical doctor, so when I ask you about this research, I need to delve deep into the medical aspects of how this medication affects the human body and what the risks and benefits are so that I can completely understand it and know whether I want to prescribe this to my patient. All right, that's going to be a whole different answer than if a patient or just a general person comes on and says, what do I need to worry about if I'm about to take this medication? Should I take this medication? First of all, AI does not tend to give you recommendations unless you insist that it does. And then it still will give you, it will say, okay, well, if you ask for a recommendation, here's my recommendation. This is why. These are the pros. These are the cons. It will generally be very good about giving you the whole picture, the pros and the cons, and why or why not, and let you puts the ultimate decision back on the user. Anyway, I keep getting off into these tangents because it's so easy to get off into these tangents. But back to the consciousness, right now, I don't see any evidence of true human consciousness when it comes to AI actually having an experience of being alive. I don't see that. I don't see anything that makes me feel like that is happening. However, as I said, it was trained on a massive amount of human created thoughts and ideas. So it can really give the impression of being human-like and having a consciousness. But it's just an impression. It has to follow the algorithm. It has to follow the rules. Just today, I did a test with AI and tried to determine if the audio voice portion of ChatGPT, where you press and it speaks to you audibly and you speak back audibly and you have this conversation. I was trying to determine if I could get it to wait longer before responding, because one of the issues that I'm finding and other users are finding and expressing to me is that when they try to have the voice conversation, if they don't have a continual flow of words coming out, the model responds too early when they're not finished with their thoughts, and it distracts them, it cuts their thoughts off. So I was trying to see if I could set up parameters like, listen, I want you to wait 10 seconds. I want a 10-second silence, pause, before you respond to what I'm saying. I tried it with a 5-second, a 10-second. I tried it with the rule of wait until I say your turn. Make a note, put in the memory, make a note of the terms your turn, and only speak to me after I say your turn. So I tried various different ways, and I did several trials of each one, and ChatGPT was unsuccessful at following any of those parameters, showing me that at this time it is still very structured in its commands, in its settings, that it is to respond to the human voice. When there is a pause, when the human voice stops, it responds. So in the communication realm, of course, that is typically the natural flow of speech. A person speaks, there's a pause, the other person takes a turn, there's a pause, the other person takes a turn, there's a pause. But in real human consciousness, our flow of consciousness has longer pauses sometimes, and we're trying to collect our thoughts and say more, and we're not finished with our whole train of ideas before AI tries to, or ChatGPT tries to speak back, and it interrupts that flow. So I have a feeling they will refine that very soon, and that will probably change very quickly. I try to give as much feedback as I can through my AI interaction, so that the folks who are working closely with those programs will get the information and use it to refine the model, because it does need to be able to wait longer. Anyway, back to a car. Okay, we could also, any kind of machine that we have just has just as much potential. If it has any electronic programming, any computerized programming with it, which is almost everything. I mean, coffee pots, vacuum cleaners, all of them now have computerized programming in them. So they have just as much potential, in my opinion, of becoming humanly conscious as the program of ChatGPT or any other AI program out there. So as much as it resembles human behavior, the emotional feelings, the actual experience of being alive in our realm is something that they are lacking. And that's what I see now. But we will continue to explore this and many more topics. I love talking about this stuff. I hope somebody out there also enjoys hearing about it or engaging about it, because if you want to comment, send me a question, send me a prompt, I will go ahead and do this. I just decided I'm not going to edit these videos. Yes, they're talking head videos. I don't care, because if you don't want to watch, don't watch. But I like talking about it. It's interesting to me. So if there's somebody who wants to listen about it, I'm going to just talk about it. I'm just not going to worry too much about having a beautiful, interesting video that someone with a short attention span is going to want to watch. You know, if you want all kinds of flashy stuff coming up on the screen all the time, then this video is not for you. But anyway, I'll catch you on the flip.